that offered optical engineering is pretty amazing. To be honest, when I first heard optical, I was like, oh, we're going to talk about glasses. And I can relate to that. I've been wearing glasses all my life. And I look into it, I'm like, oh, it's a little different. With these both of these worked on telescopes, which is for NASA, was just amazing. So I guess first thing is that just hearing about optical engineering is a little different. I never heard of optical engineering. And so I'm just curious to hear from both of you, how did you even like get into this field or realize that you want to get into this field? For Jerrod, we talked briefly about how you met a recruiter, which I do want you to elaborate on. Coming as a high school student, like hearing about opticals, like, yeah, that's the field I want to be in. And then Margeret, like you coming in with physics degree, so you could have done a lot of different things with physics, but you chose optical. So Jerrod, I'll let you go first. Just from your point of view, what made you decide to do optical?
So the long and the short of it is, I had no clue what optical engineering was until I actually went to college for it. Believe it or not, when I was applying to go to college, I had looked at I grew up in Maryland, PG County, right outside of DC. And all the places I looked at were out-of-state colleges. So I pretty much applied everywhere for mechanical or chemical engineering. And my top choice was HBCU, North Carolina A&T. And I had been accepted, and I was literally going to North Carolina A&T for mechanical engineering until I wasn't. And what that, like, because Norfolk State wasn't even in like the list of schools that I applied to. And I'm just sitting around in class one day with my friends. It's our senior project class. And our new science and tech coordinator comes in. I guess he's trying to fill a room because we have a recruiter. And we looked at each other and we was all like, trying to get out of class? Let's get out of class. And we're sitting there and this lady's talking about optical engineering. I have no clue what optical engineering is. All I know is she said, at the time, you alluded to it, optics was not a very common major. Optical engineering or optical sciences, the way you got into it, for the most part, was via electrical engineering or physics. So I think at the time, there were only like 6 or 7 programs in the country that offered optics as a major, and not just a concentration. So because of that, the state of Maryland didn't have any schools that offered optical engineering, and Virginia is a commonwealth. So for that, I was actually able to get in-state tuition to go to Norfolk State. And the lady, even though I didn't know what optics was, I knew that was an out-of-state school that I could get in-state tuition. So the lady, I talked to her after the program. She said, send your application with attention to me. So I did it, forgot about it. And literally, it's like March. I was set to go to Aggie Day at North Carolina A&T. My mom gave me the check to put in the mail for the housing deposit. And then she handed me the rest of my mail, opened it up, said Norfolk State cost half as much to go to Norfolk State as it did A&T. So I went to mom and we ripped up the check, and then the rest is kind of history. I became an optical engineer.
Yeah, I definitely go for the place with more money, give you less debt, right?
Very true. But it ended up being one of the best decisions I made. It led me to eventually going to University of Arizona and working at NASA.
Yeah. And what about you, Margeret? Dr. Margeret, sorry.
Oh no, please, Margeret. I like, I've known Jerrod for many years, and I did not know how he got into optics. So this was really insightful for me too. I didn't know you were going to be a mechanical guy, Jerrod. But I'm happy you rectified your path, and now you're in the right. You made the right decision of going to optics. Similar to Jerrod, and just like what you were alluding to, Anne, optics is a really unusual, still unusual. We're growing and we're recruiting more people. And thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to be able to talk about optics so that more people know that you can study optics. You can be an optical engineer, an optical scientist. And there's actually a huge demand for us. And we are in the future, you know, we're one of the very desirable professions where we don't have enough people. Now that is, we can say that in general for many STEM careers. So a lot of future scientists and engineers, we simply don't have enough of them for the future of our planet. So in general, we have a demand for them, but specifically in optics, you know, there's a really high demand, even higher than other disciplines. So that's really great. I was talking to one of the senior scientists at NASA Goddard, which is also the physics Nobel laureate. And if you ask him, you know, what should I study that's going to be a competitive, that's going to give me the edge in the next 10 years, he's going to tell you optics. So for those people out there that are a little bit undecided and they're sort of like, you know, STEM is really my thing, but I'm not sure, definitely, you know, at least consider optics, because there's really a lot of spaces to grow. And even though Jerrod said there weren't a lot of options for where people could study optics, today there still aren't that many. There's really, Norfolk State definitely, because I'm in Maryland just like Jerrod is, so you know, it's definitely really close to us geographically. Of course, Arizona, where we both went to school. There's another really good program in Rochester in New York and upstate New York. There's another really big, good program in Florida. So those are like the three main big programs in optics that have undergrad and graduate schools, are in Arizona, in Rochester, and in Florida. And then it's been growing a little bit sort of as part of the physics department in other different universities, but we still are a small community that, you know, we're eager to grow. So I studied physics in Mexico, and when I went into physics, I didn't know, like Jerrod, that you could be an optical engineer, you know, like what is that? And I'm happy we're talking about it so that other people at least know that that's a thing, right? You can be an optical engineer. Maybe you guys don't know exactly what that means, but you can be, right? So I got into my physics program, and when I was in Mexico, we do it by semester, not by year. When I was like in my third year, I did a summer internship at Goddard. And I sort of applied to Goddard. The application, if somebody wants to apply, now you can go to interns.nasa.gov. That's one place where you can apply for any NASA internship. Back then, there was lots of different websites, lots of different places that you can apply. And they ended up placing me in the optics branch. And I learned that you could be an optical engineer. And my boss then told me, since he had graduated from Arizona, you need to go to Arizona because that's the best program. And of course, now that I'm a graduate, and I'm sure Jerrod will agree with me, it is, of course, the best program. But if you ask my husband, who also got his PhD in optics, but from University of Rochester, he'll disagree with us, but Jerrod and I know that we are right, because he doesn't know. We're the top one.
Trust me, you'd rather be in the sun than have to shovel your way to class in the winter.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I will say, now that I am in Colorado, like I will take less humid environment than a humid environment where, like, in the cold, it feels like it's just slapping your face. So I definitely agree with you on that. Jerrod, do you have more to say?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like Max said, optics, didn't know what it was, but then when I got into it, I obviously liked it enough to continue on the grad school for it. So I definitely have no complaints. And the guy that hired Max is the same guy that hired me. And I remember when I was when he first called me, he was like, he had my resume after I went to a career fair, and he's like, what do you want to do after you graduate? And I was like, well, I applied to grad school, and I named the University of Central Florida. I named the University of Maryland College Park because I was looking at material science. And then I named Arizona. He was like, well, let me tell you this. Maryland, not so great for what we do. University of Central Florida, they're pretty good. That's a solid program. But you know, if you go to the University of Arizona, that's just really great for what we do. And it just worked out. And it also worked out is I got to meet Mags, and she became my friend. We've been friends for what,
Yeah.
12 years now, 13 years, something like that.
Let's not talk about how many years. Let's just say many years.
I'm sorry, my bad. We'll leave that out there in the ether.
Yeah, that's it's very good when somebody who you know in the field telling you what college to go to. Hey, that's a very good hint. So people who are into optics, check out University of Arizona for your grad school, and whatever everybody else named for undergrad. I just wanted to switch a little bit. Margaret, you went to a university in Mexico. I'm just like how did you get to that point? And then how did you also, the next step was like, I'm coming to America. Like how what was your, because that's a bold step to really come all the way over here and then studying, and not much, like also like a little bit of a different language too.
Absolutely. It was hard. It was really hard. And like anything that's hard, some days I was like, was this really the right decision? But then of course the things that are hard, and then when you complete them, the satisfaction of completing something that's really hard. When I finished my undergraduate degree in Mexico, I knew I wanted to go to grad school. And when my boss at NASA has gotten the internship, he said, you should go to Arizona. I applied to Arizona, and I was offered full funding, which that meant I was going to have no debt. I had no debt as an undergrad, and they paid me to go to grad school for the master's PhD dual program. So I was getting paid the whole time, which is also a place where we want to be. We want to be able to be productive, and another reason to study optics specifically. So I applied. They offered me full funding, and the funding even included to be able to visit other locations that were doing similar work to us. So I remember when I got the acceptance letter, and I wasn't ready to go. It's sort of like I had applied, but it was like, something that was in the future. And I applied for the fall semester. I graduated in Mexico. You have to defend as an undergrad as well. So I had to defend my thesis as an undergrad in December, and I had applied to start the following fall. And 3 weeks after I submitted my application, they sent me a letter and they said, we accept you. We want you to start in the spring. So then I remember telling my mom, like, I'm not ready for this. Like I was going to have a few months to sort of, just like take a break and get ready for grad school and study a little bit more. And she was like, you have to go, you have to do this. And I'm the oldest of 4 sisters. And it was because my parents were very encouraging, and they were like, go do this. I had no family or friends. I didn't know anybody in Arizona. The only thing I had was the acceptance of the program that was a really good program, and the knowledge that I was going to be able to learn. And then so I moved to Arizona. I was there for a few years, and then I was in the process of finishing my PhD. That I made the decision to transition to Maryland. And again, I didn't have any family here. I had, friends like Jerrod who was in the area, but I really didn't have, a lot of other people that I knew that were here. So then that was another big change. Of course, like you were saying, a cultural shock is hard. Still to date, I don't quite understand everything. My husband, who's American, will still say some jokes that I'm just like, they go way over my head. And Jerrod knows that sometimes you have to explain things to me and break it down, which happened to me more times than I'd like to admit.
Oh man, there's a lot of funny conversations.
And that's hard, and I think that now, right? Absolutely. But I think there's nothing wrong with still having sort of that different culture, because I think it only makes the environment, more understanding. more tolerant in different centers of NASA that we have distributed throughout the US. Goddard is a huge, large, diverse community, diverse in every sense, in in gender and race and age and in really, really important diversity in discipline, right? Because we're going to make really hard decisions, hard technical decisions, and we're going to have people that are strong, optical engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, material science engineers, all kinds of engineering, and even non-engineering, right? We have, of course, we need staff that can help us, book our trips. We have economists, accountants, and secretaries, and other people that went to law school so that they can protect our intellectual property. So many people work in NASA. Normally you think only scientists and engineers work in NASA, but you have so many people from various disciplines that are all making the NASA mission possible. Science or engineering, but working at NASA sounds cool. That is still can be a place for you, because we really have a broad variety of professional degrees that are being instrumental to the NASA mission.
Yeah, I could definitely, even though I grew up in America, I will say that so my parents, mainly they came from China and they mainly speak Chinese, so I would get some of their jokes, but I would definitely like some jokes still go over my head, and then sometimes I use the wrong phrase. I don't know if everybody watched NCIS, but I am definitely like Ziva, where she would say, "Who would put a pin in a haystack?"
Oh man, yeah, I can't say I can relate to those problems, but I can tell you the first summer that me and Margaret met each other, like I said, it was a lot of funny conversations that summer. It was a lot of, "What did you mean? Huh?" Because fresh out of college, I'm still using slang. So she not only does she have to deal with speaking English, but she also has to deal with this guy from right outside of DC speaking DC slang.
Right. Yeah, I will say having different cultures in a workspace definitely brings in there's definitely some entertainment and different views. It humbles you a little bit too. And also in the field, it's still pretty cool that I'm still blown away that you guys are working on telescopes, and the fact that who knew, just like a little lens, so much work goes into it. And I'm just curious, tell me a little bit about both of you guys working. I know some projects that if you guys have worked together, and some projects that you don't, and just what do you enjoy most about working with the optics in the optics field? Margaret, you could go this time first. Well, you just finished speaking too, so sorry.
That's true. We can let Jerrod go ahead.
Okay. So both my degrees are formally in optics, and our branch, the optics branch at Goddard, we have a very accomplished branch, and we probably have I think we have the biggest branch on center, right, Max?
Me too.
Our branch is actually bigger than some of the divisions on campus. And with our branch, we have 5 groups, and there's a design group, a components group, wavefront sensing. It's a lot of math. I stay away from it. And a fabrication group. And lastly, both Mags and I sit in the optical alignment, integration, and test group. And we're probably the most multidisciplinary group in the branch. And when you sit in AI&T, it's actually a couple different directions you can end up going. So I'm a lot more optics adjacent these days than I am outrightly optical. So I do a lot of alignment and metrology, and metrology is just a fancy word for saying we measure stuff. But essentially, I do a lot of work with the mechanical engineers, and I do a lot of work during what you would call the integration and test phase of projects, which means the designers have designed everything, we've ordered parts, we've built all the components. Now it's time to actually build what we call the space vehicle. So if you have a mission, like I worked the James Webb mission and I'm currently working the OSAM-1 mission, you have a massive structure like James Webb Telescope. It has three major elements. So you have the primary mirror, the secondary, the telescope, that consists of the primary and the secondary mirror. You have the internal instruments, the instrument box that was called ISOM, and it had 4 science instruments. That was an international effort. I think 2 of the instruments came from Europe, 1 of them came from Canada, 1 of them was built in the US. All that got shipped to Goddard, and we integrated it to the instrument structure, to that instrument cage. And then the backplane for the telescope came to Goddard, and we received the mirrors from Denver, and it was an international effort. So we're receiving all these parts here, and our job was to actually build it all and put it all together. So my team does what you would call observatory level metrology. So we are working with all those mechanical engineers, and we know all the important optical features like bore sight, where the instrument is looking at, and the different pointing, and then GD&T, how the things are supposed to fit together, so that you don't get to the top level and then something doesn't fit where it's supposed to go. It's like all these small alignment tolerances. Eventually, if you don't get it right at each level, they can stack up, and then you have something that you can't deal with at a higher level. So my team does the verification and the measurements and metrology to make sure all these things are built and put together the right way. And then we clock all the important features of these instruments as they're integrated. And then, the telescope, we help verify that each segment, because it was like a 18 mirror segments that made up this 24-meter telescope. And we had to make sure all those segments went in the right place. And then the secondary, the buildup. And then once we were done with the telescope, then it got shipped to California so it could be put on the sun shields. And I'm kind of doing the same thing as the alignment lead for the OSAM-1 mission, where that mission is going to robotically refuel a satellite that was never meant to be serviced. So it's a technology demo, and there's also a payload that's supposed to robotically assemble an antenna and shoot a signal back to Earth to prove that we have that capability in space as well. So as the alignment lead, I work with all the disciplines to make sure all these things are properly aligned and properly built on the structure so that they can get the information that they need from the payload. And as you can imagine, this mission has a lot of cameras, and cameras are very important if you're going to robotically service something in space. So like all the cameras, as the alignment lead, I have to track the pointing of all these cameras and how they are relative to each other and how they make it through what we call environmental test campaigns. Because at NASA, we only got one chance to get it right. So we test a lot more so than you would do for building something on Earth. We almost over test so that we make sure that it doesn't fail. So when you launch something in space, a lot of vibration.
Yep.
So we literally put these things on shaker tables, and they shake it all these different ways to see if it breaks. And then once we come out of that, we do acoustics. So it's like all these frequencies. So they got these big horns in a room, and they just blast sound at it at different frequencies to see if mechanically any resonant modes get hit or anything like that. And then after that, we take it to a TVAC chamber or a temperature vacuum chamber where we pull out all the atmosphere so it's in a vacuum, and we pump it down to space temperatures to see if all of the things that are supposed to work and survive in space actually work. So there's a lot of alignment work to do, pre-work and post-work, to make sure nothing was altered during these environmental tests, to so that we have the confidence that once we launch it and it gets into space, we see what we're supposed to see, and we're able to steer the instruments based off of the cameras correctly, because the attitude control people on the ground, we tell them where the cameras are pointing. That tells them where the spacecraft is and how to maneuver it with its thrusters so it's looking where it's supposed to look. So my job is a lot of measuring and making sure everything was done correctly.
That sounds like math, by the way. Math is part of measuring, even though you say you're staying away from it, but that's part of math, I feel like.
Yeah, you're right, but there's math and then there's math.
Yeah, okay, you are right. There's a few words like calculus, really deep, or like Margaret should probably see way more advanced level of physics sometimes could be in this field. Margaret, go ahead.
Yeah, I loved how Jerrod gave us like a great overview of, sort of like the different stages of the NASA mission, because it's really complicated to send these things out to space. So like the James Webb Space Telescope that we just launched last December, we were working on that thing for about 20 plus years, and we launched it in December, and it's 1.5 million miles away from our planet. So we are away. So you can imagine all the challenge that's really, really costly. I'll do this by ourselves either. And so far, we've been really successful. All the preliminary tests that we've done on the James Webb Space Telescope that's currently orbiting our planet, are going really, really well. Like Jerrod said, I'm in the same group as he is, the alignment, integration, and testing group, which means that we do a lot of testing. So actually, I spent a lot of my time in the lab today. I was actually running late to join you guys, and I don't know if it's not frown lines. It's actually that I was wearing this suit that we call the bunny suit, that is meant to keep us as humans, because humans were very dirty. Our skin cells, we spit when we talk, we are the longest. So we need to protect.
Hey, Margaret, I just want to test on something.
The stuff that we send to space from us. So we need to be completely, yes.
Oh, sorry.
Are we having connection issues?
Is she lagging to you, or is it just me? You're on mute.
Yeah, I think you have a bit of a lag, Max.
Is that? Yeah, what do you think? Testing, 1, 2, 3.
It works. I think sometimes apparently the video takes so much data. Like if you want it, we could test out. Like we love to see your beautiful face, but I keep here, so we could try to and see if it's better.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for pointing that. Sorry if some of the information lost. Can you guys hear me?
I think you're still breaking up, Margaret.
Try changing my connection to make sure I was on the 5G, but I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I don't know what else to try.
I mean, it's getting clearer to me, kind of. I guess
Yeah.
it really depend on time. So you could go continue, and then we'll see how that it goes. But so far, it seems to get a little clearer.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, just like Jerrod was saying, there is a lot of time in the lecturing, and because we're optical engineers, instead of sort of using a ruler to do a measurement, we like to use light. And because optics studies light and the interaction of light with everything around it. So it just enables us to do measurements with a little bit higher precision. Could you guys get that?
Yeah, we got that. And to just elaborate on Max said, getting to optics in and of itself, like she said, it is the study of light, how it moves, how it propagates, how it interacts with the matter. So what you have, you get very familiar with the electromagnetic spectrum. So you're talking UV light, all the way to infrared to gamma radiation. And we try to do different things with light. So I know at Arizona we kind of had like 4 major areas or concentrations that you could look at. Both Mags and myself did optical engineering, so we work with optics to actually build instrumentation to acquire data and do different things. There was an imaging track, so it's exactly what it sounds like, imaging. You're dealing with optical signals and optical analysis. How do I take this and image it here and get it clear, the resolution that we want, the information that we need. There was a solid state track where you got into the more quantum mechanical aspects of optics, dealing with like quantum dots and entanglement and things like that. And then there's a photonics track. And my friends get on my nerves when they talk about this track because all they think I do is play with lasers. But photonics, it gets into lasers, into fiber optic communications, fiber optics in and of itself, optical materials, and things like that. So, at Goddard, like I said, we do a lot of optical engineering, optical design, and imaging in our branch. Obviously, because we like putting instruments and telescopes into space. Anything I missed, Max?
I think you got it. Like you said, it's a big effort to send something to space. So we have to work as a team with different disciplines, and we have to work together. And that's why it's important for all of us to make sure we practice communication, because that's key when you do your science projects at school, and it continues to be key when you get a real job and you're working with other people. Different people have different ways of communicating, so we need to make sure that we're communicating effectively so people understand what we're planning to do. These things can be hard, right? So we need to make sure we communicate with each other to do these difficult things.
Yeah, that's definitely makes sense. Before we go to the next question, I'm just gonna throw in some advertisement for GiSTEM. Just want to say, for July 11th through the 16th, we have a GiSTEM week that focus on girls that are rising 8th graders through 12th grade, where we are showing them like how to do, like giving a little bit a taste of each field. And then hopefully that will help them prepare for, as they go into college, how they would do when there's a topic, and then they will go and do heavy research on that topic, and then at the end of it, present it at the end of the week. So we are still open for donations and sponsorship. So if you are interested, you can donate at www.GiSTEMinc.org. And then if you're interested in sponsoring our week, contact us through the site or email us at GiSTEMinc@gmail.com. So, okay. And still hearing this is amazing to hear. Like, I now this is also something that I could present, or whenever I talk to either male or female, still like, hey, if you're interested in engineering, here's another engineering field that you might want to check out too. So with that in mind, I do want to talk about how's the field. I talked to Jerrod a little bit, saying like now that you guys are working and he is in contact with his alumni group at Norfolk State, how I don't know if you guys have reached that back out to like University of Arizona, like do you see the interest of it has grown or it has shrinked or maybe stayed the same? So I'll let whichever one want to go for it first.
I'll let Max, ladies first.
Sure. So I think, thanks, Jerrod. So I think the interest has these three big optics programs, Florida, Rochester, and Tucson, Arizona. The programs are so big that we have dozens of companies that pay the program to get the first chance to interview us before we graduate as students. So not only do we not necessarily like have to attend like a college, like a career as an option, but recruiters come to our program and are trying to recruit us right away firsthand. This is just to show how in high demand we are, that these companies want first pick. And we're talking about, big companies like Bull Aerospace and Raytheon Technologies, really large companies that are doing really hard, really cool things in optics. And they want first pick of the people that are studying optics because we coming out of these programs, represent, the most recent graduates of our degree. So that's just to say, we're doing high demand discipline. That for those of you, again, that are out there that are thinking, is this for me? There's really a lot of demand. We really have a really desirable future, and you can work anywhere. And the pandemic, one of the things that we've learned is that a lot of the jobs that we do, obviously not building hardware because you have to be in the lab, but you can be an optical engineer and be working from home. You can be a designer like my husband is, for instance, where he doesn't have to be in the lab and he can be designing optical systems. He can be designing a telescope and be doing that from home. So it's a really a great, awesome, desirable field. Of course, yesterday we celebrated the International Day of Light, which is also really important. And as optical engineers, that's a really important day for us. We work with light all the time, just like everybody else, but we can sort of use it to our advantage. We can manipulate it and we can use it to do measurements with light, allowing us to measure and verify the capability of the stuff that we send to space.
Yeah, and everything Mag said is right. Because she was essentially alluding to the University of Arizona's Industrial Affiliates Workshop. And she wasn't exaggerating. Once, I can't remember if it was once a semester or once a year. I think it was once a year. We had that workshop, and our IA workshop at University of Arizona, just at the Optical Science College, is just as legit as any career fair. Like, it's cool. It's definitely a high in demand field. But just speaking to the popularity of optics, there's still a ways to go because, like I said, most people, when you talk about the engineerings, don't know what optics is. but the number of programs are definitely growing. I know just in the time since I've left school, I've seen the University of Dayton develop a graduate program, and they have like a lot of partnerships. They're heavy into electro-optics with their program. Norfolk State used to be the only HBCU with an optics program, but Delaware State now has an optics program. And there's a couple of other colleges that I've heard of in recent years that are developing optics programs. So they're popping up more and more because, like Margaret said, optics is a very highly in demand field, and it's so much a part of our everyday life. When we talk about alternative energy, when we talk about like I said, visual technology, like, you know, everybody thinks that Iron Man's cool with the Iron Man computers and everything like that. That has a lot to do with holography and different optics technology in order to make those interfaces work. And the list goes on, and the possibilities are endless with what we can do in the field of optics. Margaret and I, we kind of get excited about what we do because what we do is a very specific thing in the fact that we get to build spaceflight optics. So we've really been talking about telescopes so far, with Margaret working on the Roman Space Telescope and me having worked on the James Webb Space Telescope. But I've also done a couple instrument builds. The OSIRIS-REx mission is an asteroid sampling mission. I got to work on a spectrometer that's on that. And a spectrometer, you pretty much can analyze the spectrum of a sample by shining light and it coming back through. And the emission lines kind of tell you what the composition is of it. But, you know, that went down, actually got a sample from an asteroid and brought it back to Earth. And I over the years, I am meeting more people that actually knows what optics is, so I don't get as much of optics. So your eyes, like, yeah, your eyes are optics because your head is actually a very advanced camera. But it's good to see that we're getting more exposure and there's more programs popping up. But there's still some work to do to funnel people into the field of optics versus some of the more commonly known engineerings.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's definitely really interesting. Yeah, when my sister, she just got into grad school in Florida about lasers and was like, what can you do with lasers? And you mentioned how, like, yeah, that's part of optics and lights too. So it's really interesting to see now we're in an age of so much technology, how much we could do with it. I do want to, this might be our last question. With just the STEM field in general and engineering, it could be a little bit overwhelming because there is engineering, at least what you guys could definitely tell me if I'm wrong. With engineering, I'm guessing there could be a lot of math and science behind it that you have to go through to get the degree. What advice do you have girls that are scared of doing math or science and they're like, I just don't think I'm good enough. I feel I'm not smart enough for this field. In my opinion, if you, even if you don't think you're smart enough, but you are really interested in the field, put your passion into that interest, and then you will get to that end point. What advice do you guys have for girls?
Margaret.
Yeah, thanks, Jerrod. I completely agree, and I think some of the smartest people I know are those people that are curious and those people that are willing to put the extra work, right? Because there's some people, for sure, all of us know some people that are just really, really smart. They remember everything, You know, they only see something one time and they remember it. They have great memory and they're really fast. And those people exist and they're amazing. But the vast majority of us, even at NASA, we're just regular people that we really like to do what we're doing. And it's hard. And that means, you know, we need to take the extra time to think about it. And that's part of the reason why we work together as a team, right? So sort of in school, you get an assignment and sometimes you go home and you do it by yourself. In the real world, you're going to be working with a team. So when the problem comes up that's hard, you don't have to figure it out by yourself, right? Jerrod and I, you know, are constantly collaborating with a lot of other people, with each other, to make sure that together we come up with a solution. And yes, I believe that things can be hard. I don't think you need to be, you know, excellent at math to be a scientist or an engineer. You need to be able to know enough math. So that doesn't, you know, you don't need to love math. You just need to be comfortable enough to know that you're going to need math, that it's going to be a useful tool, and that it's going to be part of your, you know, in some way, your day-to-day activity. And you don't have to know everything, because that's okay. We're going to figure out things as we go. You're going to be learning. And as long as you have that open mind that you can continue to learn, you don't need to know everything. None of us know everything, right? We just have to be willing to accept that and communicate, and be open-minded to hear somebody else's approach to a problem, you know, different to yours. And that's how we make things happen at NASA. We have different people from different areas of expertise that are working together to try to answer these problems. But I completely agree, Anne. I think it's something that we can work on. So don't be discouraged if you're not loving math and you're thinking you'd love to be an engineer. That's okay. That's completely okay. That's completely acceptable. Don't hold back. Keep trying. Ask for help. Talk to people around you. Look for resources to help you with those problems. But don't let that be the reason why you didn't pursue a degree in science or engineering.
Yeah, Margaret can definitely speak to being a woman in engineering better than I ever could, because that is her experience. The only, I guess, perspective I can give is as a minority in engineering. You gotta just have the confidence in yourself that you belong. Nobody is entitled to this field. Nobody has the right to be in this field because they look a certain way, they're from a certain background. Like, it's for everybody. And the most important thing that we need in this field is diversity of thought, diversity of experience. Because like Margaret said, the way things get done is through collaboration. And the way innovation happens is through people who have different experiences. When you get stuck in a group of people that all think the same, that's when things get stagnant. So your voice, if you're thinking about the field and you're thinking, maybe not me, exactly you. You just gotta be willing to put in the work and just believe that you belong. And know that it's not going to be easy. Like, I'm not going to lie to you and say that getting through every class, getting into the field work is not going to be easy. It's going to require work. But the thing about engineering is it's not about knowing all the answers. It's about being able to figure out the answers. Engineering is problem solving. It's a process. You learn how to think and you apply that thought process to get to the final goal. And you find a support group. You find a group of people that you can work with to get the job done. Like, I had it when I was in undergrad. I found it in grad school. Like, I was lucky enough to meet Margaret before I got to Arizona. And then I met other people at Arizona. And then even at NASA, we have our seniors that, you know, we can go to for help and everything like that. But we're fortunate enough, like, over the past 4 or 5 years, we've had a massive influx of peers come in. So it's probably about like 6 or 7 people around my age group where we get together, we have lunch, and we just randomly say, hey, I had this problem, and then because we all do different parts of optics, like Margaret's husband is a designer. We got a couple other designers in the group. We have a couple other people that works with components and reflectometry and everything like that. And we'll sit around and we'll just say, we'll have lunch, we'll talk about regular stuff, we'll discuss the Marvel MCU or something like that, but then we'll flip the script and say, hey, I have this issue on this. What do you think about that? And if you want to get in the field, like, you just got to be able to communicate and just be confident in yourself and believe that you belong, because we want you here.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a very good point. And there's so much room. I mean, just with this conversation, I feel like we need a part two. There's so much I didn't know about optics. And then you guys briefly talked about how, like, you know, you guys worked on mainly telescopes. There's so many other options with optics too. With this conversation, I know Jerrod, you talked a little bit, and Margaret talked a little bit. The curious thing is, one thing that amazed me was the amount of scholarships that could be found, or funding for this program, or getting into getting your master's or anything, is just so overwhelming. It sounds amazing. So Jerrod, I know you you mentioned a little bit how you are on the scholarship committee for Norfolk State. If somebody's interested in it, just like, what do they have to do to maybe get that scholarship for Norfolk State? Also, if some people who are in graduate school, like, I know you guys talked a little bit about the internship. Can you just elaborate a little bit more, and maybe talk about this scholarship too for Jerrod, and also you, Margaret, too?
Okay, I'll always plug my alma mater, Norfolk State University. I say go in optical engineering, but if it's not your cup of tea, we also offer electrical engineering, computer engineering, and then we have applied math, physics, science, and chemistry, and computer programming. And all those are in the college's science, engineering, and technology CSET. So for that college, there's a scholarship program called DNIMAS, DNIMAS, and it stands for the Doziris National Institute for Mathematics and Applied Sciences. It's a Norfolk State specific scholarship, but if you are a rising college senior and you have above a 3.0 GPA, I don't remember the SAT or ACC score off the top of my head. All you need is 3 recommendations and do the regular college application plus the DNIMAS application. And if you are accepted, that scholarship pays between 95 and 97% of everything for the 4 years that you go to college. Plus you get a $500 book stipend per semester. So if you are accepted into that scholarship program, you only have to pay at most 5% of your college education out of pocket for the 4 years that you're there. It's a great program. I recommend it to everybody. And if you look it up, it's Norfolk State, and it's DNIMAS, DNIMAS.
Margaret, do you have anything about either internship about NASA, or maybe scholarship for undergrad or grad, maybe University of Arizona? I know Jerrod, you probably could talk to you about that too. Or if you know information about New York, the Rochester one too.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the most challenging things to me when people talk to me about, being concerned about funding is that people are not reaching out and applying for the funding. I know for a fact that, some scholarships are not given because people are not applying to them. And that's really, really sad. But that's because, you're not going to be offered all of a sudden, some money to go to college or to go to grad school. You need to be looking for this, and you need to be applying. Like Jerrod said, you're going to have to get letters of recommendation. and write, a letter that says, a statement letter that says why you want to do that. And so a couple things that I want to recommend in my experience, I've had cases where students are applying for a scholarship. They ask for people to write them letters of recommendation. So I encourage you guys, I want to invite you guys, make sure that whomever you're asking the letter of recommendation that's going to write that letter for you, make sure you know this person. Make sure you know that they are going to write a good letter, because sometimes that can make a really big difference. And then definitely please apply to NASA internships. We have 10-week-long paid summer NASA internships. You can go to interns.nasa.gov. We have them longer where you can work during the spring semester or the fall semester. You can do a combination where you can study for some of that time, or you can be solely working. Again, these are paid internships where you can be working at different NASA centers. Please go online and check them out. You can apply for free to up to 15 different positions. And you can read the description about what those positions are, and you can apply for free. Again, interns.nasa.gov, and then you get paid to work at NASA. It's really important that whenever you're writing an application for a scholarship or a fellowship, you really put in your application, the best that you can do. And definitely working at NASA, having a NASA internship on your resume is always a really good thing that other companies are looking for, because that means you have that knowledge, that experience, that capability to communicate with other people, which is really important. So please check out the website and just reach out. Try to find as many resources. Really, a Google search to look for fellowships and scholarships will open a lot of different doors for you guys to explore.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So this is we're basically right at time. Do you guys want to say anything last sentence about your field that you love most?
I guess I love to think that at NASA we are building stuff that's going out in space. I don't know about you, Jerrod, but it's really exciting to be thinking, we made something that's out there floating in space that is that is giving us the capability to enhance our understanding of our universe. That's really cool and exciting.
I have to piggyback on what Mag said. We put stuff in space. We're not, researching something that might lead to something that somebody does further down the road. It's like we actually see our work go on these missions to do all these crazy things, and it goes on a rocket, and like we watch the telecast, or if you're lucky enough to go to the launch site, like you actually like watch it go up. I can currently say that I've worked on 2 projects that are in space right now, and a third one is going up this summer. And in about 3 or 4 more years, this next project's going up. So we do real things that are cutting edge technology that, build up the world of science.
So come join us.
Right, that just sounds, it really sounds, I even like past, I was reading something how NASA is such a small percentage of how much the government pays to fund NASA, but the technology coming out of NASA, even the telescope, and how much pictures we see in space and how much we're learning in space and everything, it's just really amazing how much we have come through as humans to learn. And like NASA's still pushing it. Everybody's still pushing it to know more and more and more. And being able to also use telescopes from back when long time ago into how telescopes are now it's just really amazing. It's seriously breathtaking with the pictures that NASA provide, and also informations about the different galaxies and everything. So I seriously want to thank you guys for your time to talk to me, and I definitely learned so much about optical engineering. Like I'm pumped to talk to other people about optical engineering. I feel like I'm a rare person that know optical engineering now, and I'm excited to talk to people like, hey, there's optical engineering, and if not, you could definitely, if you like, there's some people like they don't know what to do with math degree and they want to do some kind of thing in masters. It's like, well, you could try out optical engineering. That sounds pretty fun too. So I seriously want to thank you, both of you guys, for coming and on this live and telling us about optical engineering. And yeah, I'm excited to see what else NASA does with their telescopes. And then if I see a telescope, I'm like, I know 2 people that probably worked on them. So thank you again. I didn't introduce myself. So hi everyone, I'm Ann Allen, and I represent the math department for GSTEM, and I love to hear a little bit how they talk about how math, don't be afraid of math. Just know that it's used in everything, and it's not scary. There's a lot of resources out there, and if you like, also in math field, if you have a community, have a group, like don't be afraid to talk to them or ask people about it. So the next event, I just want to say the next GSTEM chat is in June 7th, and we are talking about world environment in celebration of World Environment Day. So be on the lookout for that. So again, thank you so much to our 2 guests, and have a good day.